Consevant's little problem.
I've postponed this for far too long, Consevant thought tiredly after being woken up by his servant.
It's bad news again. The monster from the catacombs took another victim today. This would be somewhere about 150th villager in these past couple of years. He has long ceased to count the number of cows, pigs, sheep, and horses eaten by the monster.
He felt that his servant was trembling with fear, and that he wanted to leave the room as soon as possible. Consevant had a tendency to be quite nasty in situations like these, but this time he sent his servant out without further delay. The situation on the estate was getting worse, and given that he did not take any action on the issue, his serfs have tried to solve the problem on their own several times, but they would perish every time, and usually in a larger number than if they were to leave the monster alone. His serfs began to despise him, as a large number of their relatives and children were killed, and he felt that the new rebellion was underway. Dissatisfaction was rising rapidly. After last week, one little girl, and soon afterwards, a little boy were killed. Today's disappearance of the local priest has threatened to be the straw that broke the camel's back. He has already quelled the previous rebellion, cruelly, as only vampires would. But the villagers were slowly finding themselves in a situation where they had less and less to lose. Between the monster on one side and him on the other, their fate was starting to look grim, and desperate people were willing to try and do anything. And not even him, a lord of one whole area in the Balkan region, nor any other owner of a similar vast and wealthy feudal estate, was willing to lose all of his serfs and all of his labor. This wouldn't be profitable for him, not in the slightest. For who would work then and create wealth for him? Who would he have been able to tax? Whose blood would he drink? And how would he have been able to compare his wealth with other vampires? Consevant was a lazy and conceited vampire, not particularly different from all the others who ruled these parts. He slept a lot, ate and drank even more, worked very little. He often read the simplest of prose, and occasionally went socializing with his kind. And like all of them, he held a high, too high opinion of himself. Spoiledness and propensity towards a hedonistic way of life were the main characteristics of this ruling vampire class. He, of course, did not like to think about himself in this manner, so he hid behind a thin facade of sophistication, worn-out mannerisms, and false intellectualism. This time, however, he knew that he would finally have to do something. He will solve the problem himself, because he did not want any more of his servants to perish. After all, they were his investment. Among the vampires, there was a strong view that all living beings were their pets or food. Strangely enough, he once used to have a real pet, which, in time, he grew to love, but it also perished. Consevant rarely allowed himself to grow fond of living things, but that little rat has something special in him. Maybe he reminded him of himself. He was voracious. He never could get enough. He was often furious and fierce, and all of that without a trace of shame, without a need to pretend that it is something else than that. And yes, it often liked to bite really good, right to the bone, but Consevant didn't mind that. His wounds would almost instantly heal anyway. He envied animals in some way, because they were always allowed to be what they are. He would have liked to allow himself to behave like this always, because sometimes he did. And those would be wonderful and crazy nights, full of adventure and excess. But sooner or later, he would have to return to his original human form to continue the charade. All in all, this problem had to be resolved now. His servants drove him to the catacombs in his luxurious carriages and left him 100 meters away from the entrance, where they would wait until he returned. He usually liked to dress up in his most expensive clothes when traveling anywhere. However, for this occasion, he knew that he would have to get dirty, and so, in the end, he dressed as one of his serfs, with long leather boots made for walking in deep mud, thick and wide trousers, accustomed to dirt and shrub, and a thick shirt with long sleeves. The costuming was really annoying for him, and made him even more irritated. But maybe that was good, because he decided to use that nervousness and agitation and channel them into aggression and rage when being confronted with the monster. Catacomb tunnels were tall, wide and long, and they stretched for kilometers into distance and depth. They were the remains of an older civilization that existed here thousands of years ago. But all that was left of it were the foundations of the long demolished fortresses and castles, and these catacombs, which were used for irrigation in the last few centuries, but recently even for sewage. Inside, the scent wasn't pleasant at all, because all the rubbish and waste from the nearby rivers and creeks was flowing right in here. And it was dark, very dark. Had he not been a vampire, he would not even see a single finger in front of his eyes. But since he had perfect night vision, and so he did not even bother with bringing a torch with him. He went deeper and deeper into the catacombs, and the first few 100 meters, except for tons of junk and refuse, there were no traces of the monster which everyone was afraid of. But when he went a whole kilometer in, he slowly began to feel the scent of corpses that were rotting inside. He recognized some of those rotting smells were coming from animals, but some came from humans. The corpses and the smell didn't bother him. He was accustomed to them from birth. But to every other ordinary man, such a trip to the dark depths of the earth, almost as if walking straight down to hell, would be more than frightening. For him, this was a walk almost like any other. He wasn't the least worried or frightened, only bothered that he has to deal with this instead of being in the castle now, with a good book and a glass of hot blood. After another kilometer, he finally thought he heard some fuss and rustle in the distance. The commotion didn't last long, a second,
or two, but his instincts told him that he found what he was looking for. It is quite possible that the animal heard him too, because after that it didn't give off any more sounds. Still, he could hear the slight stirs in the water. It seemed to him that the monster decided to submerge itself underwater. A wise move. It was hiding most of its body and its smell at the same time. He immediately remembered that the first time he saw this kind of animal behavior was in ancient Egypt, during his first visit about 5,000 years ago, when he was still relatively young. Animals that are now named crocodiles and hippopotamuses did the same even then, and this tiny bit of observation from back then is now helping him in this hunt. Still, this small maneuver by the monster wasn't really that important. There was nothing it could do to help itself now. With his super hearing and enhanced senses, he felt something approaching him. He could hear the monster breathing, even though it was very quiet and controlled. "Come on, Zuri. Come here. Come here." Consevant spoke to it quietly. Now, even through water, Consevant could feel its heartbeat speeding up. It seems that little Zuri still remembered him. Consevant missed his pet, it and its little mischiefs. He wanted to see it one last time, before he had to do the inevitable. "Come on out. Come here. Come here, little one," Consevant whispered. Zuri began to wiggle in the water. Its twitching gave away its indecisiveness. Should it get out and greet the old owner, or be careful and prepare itself for an attack on someone whom it hasn't been in contact with for such a long time? Friend or foe? This was what little Zuri was contemplating now. "Come on, come here. I won't hurt you." Some sniffing could be heard now. "Come on, Zuri, behave." Then there was silence. Zuri became so quiet that for a moment it disappeared from all of Consevant's senses. And then, not long after, it started to slowly rise above the water. Meter by meter, Zuri, once a small pet rat, was now coming out of the water, and it appeared as an ever larger and larger giant. It was at least 10 meters tall, wide as much as that, and who knows how long, probably 20 or more meters. "Oh, my little one, what have you turned into?" Consevant was feeling bad that Zuri ended up like this, but at the same time he wondered how it could have grown so much. Did it eat something special, or have some spells been cast upon it? He didn't know, and he didn't preoccupy with that thought for too long, because he still wanted to get back to the estate as soon as possible. "I'm sorry about all of this, kiddo, but I'll have to go soon," Consevant said with a touch of impatience in his voice. Zuri felt this tiny tension and a change of mood in Consevant's voice, and in uncertain situations like these, its instincts compelled it to react with immediate aggression. But Consevant was quicker, way quicker. Although Zuri pressed hard against the floor with his feet, its movements seemed to Consevant as if they were coming from an old, frail person. From here it was easy. Consevant was standing on Zuri's neck, and now it was only necessary to interrupt the blood supply from its heart to the brain, and thus the flow of information from the brain to the body. Consevant chose to do so by burying his arm through Zuri's soft tissue on the neck. He will try to feel out and find the spinal column, and turn one or two vertebrae into dust. That should be enough. And it was enough. Consevant did not want Zuri to suffer, or to listen to its long screeching and wailing due to some slower and more painful and prolonged form of death. He had no intention of torturing it. Perhaps, if it wasn't his pet, then it would be somewhat interesting and fun, because he always loved torturing people and animals. This time, he restrained himself. Consevant said his goodbyes to Zuri after jumping off his back, and then gently petting his head. "All right, Zuri. Goodbye now, you little rascal." Finally, he proceeded to leave the sewer. He was too lazy to move the carcass or butcher it to tiny pieces with his claws in order for the water from the sewer to easily take it away. He will leave it to rot in there for months. Yes, the peasant will complain about the foul smell polluting this entire area, but it was of no concern to him. He was too lazy to check if there was anything else in Zuri's lair, and he never bothered to find out. He just wanted to go back to the castle as soon as possible. But Zuri was a female, and she gave birth a whole litter of young. Soon they will grow, and they will have something to eat. The corpse of their mother and a few of her old catches will serve as a completely sufficient source of food in the near future. Maybe they too will grow up as their mother, or maybe they will remain quite small. And when and if people and livestock begin to disappear again, Consevant will be forced to react one more time. But this time, clean up the sewer properly.